We're going to jump straight into that one. Some great technique on display by Magnus, trading off his bishop advantage at the right moment, tying down white's one rook on the A line, defending the A5 pawn. Also, the mobility of the white knight. You're always looking for outposts and good squares to land into, but this knight just feels dominated right now.
I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll say it always. That bishop 3 squares away from a knight completely controls it. There are no forward options. Speaking of forward, look at those pawns. David, you were clamoring for this for so long, and now it's here.
Yeah, Magnus biding his time, not rushing. That's tip 101 in Grind Like a Grandmaster in our book. Just don't rush. Just enjoy the moment, massage the advantage, torture your opponent as long as possible. The longer you torture them, the more likely it is that they'll crack. And Magnus, the pawns are rolling now. Again, no concrete threat, but it's just unpleasant. You see your opponents coming towards you, you see their army advancing, and you're just stuck. You just have to stay still. Look at that white rook. It's just kind of yo-yoing back and forth on the A file because white's weakness, the pawn on A5 that Robert mentioned earlier. White's knight stuck, plugging the C file, and no clear plan of action for white. Black, meanwhile, improving every move.
David, you make it sound so easy to grind like a grandmaster. When I try to grind like an international master, I just often find my opponent breaking free and getting this counterplay, and I'm the one getting tortured at the end. How do you keep control in these kind of positions?
Well, it's, I mean, it helps when you're Magnus Carlsen, when you've seen everything a mile away. But yes, number one kind of rule, other than just being patient, is to look for your opponent's threats. And here, luckily, Magnus doesn't even have to look out for any counterplay.
And there's one major, really thorn in white's side. He goes g3, he's trying to get some counterplay here, but that rook in the corner for white is stuck there because that pawn on a5, it's wandered too far. If you could actually bring that a5 pawn back a couple squares, then white would say, it's not so bad for me because that rook is free to go. That rook is stuck in the corner, it's protecting a pawn. Meanwhile, black's rooks are free to shuffle back and forth. Look at Magnus, he didn't trade on the king side, he pushed his pawn forward. He may think about that pawn promoting later in this game.
Yeah. Theory of two weaknesses. White has one weakness on a5, maybe on h2 as well. Big weakness there. If you could ever trick white, if you could ever sneak a black rook behind on the first rank to come and grab this pawn, it's game over. And this is a trademark of Alpha Zero of Magnus Carlsen. Push pawns as close to promotion as possible. Any race, Magnus will win later.
Is there an idea here if black plays rook to b4 and white plays rook a1, can I play rook takes b2? I've been wondering about this. Can I sacrifice an exchange? Not yet, but the point still exists that there could be an exchange sacrifice for some pawns, and Magnus is doing that grinding thing where he's slowly improving his position move by move, piece by piece, but watch out for ideas just like that.
Yeah, it's a really nice thing that you pointed out, but what Magnus is doing, right, he's also playing on the clock. He'll take those critical decisions of changing the dynamics in the position when Alireza is down to his seconds, which makes it that much harder to actually control the position. A check's been given on the board, and you're pointing out the squares that are on Magnus's radar. And also Alireza, with the last few moves, it's clear that he thinks that there's nothing better he can do in the position. He's just shuffling around with the rook, and that makes it so much easier for Magnus to improve his position.
Yeah, the hardest thing in chess is to actually do nothing, and that's what Alireza is having to do right now. Most likely he'll bring his rook back. He might get tempted to swing his rook across. I was going to say go for that slightly detached black h-pawn, but no, he does adopt this defensive formation. And now Magnus, we know he doesn't believe in fortresses. Can he break white's fortress?
It's a good question, and it doesn't look very easy. That exchange sacrifice will be in the back of his mind, but we saw the eval bar say not in that position. The big problem for white is your rooks are stuck. The rook on a3, protecting the pawn on a5. The rook on the second rank is shielding the king and protecting that b2 pawn. So has Magnus maximized? That's the question. A fortress would be a really big dream come true for Alireza, where it looks terrible. He can just shuffle a little bit back and forth here and there, and Magnus saying, oh, big decision time. Can you trade me, or is that black king coming in too quickly?
Wow, big question to ask as well. No easy answers. Alireza feels obliged to trade off the rooks. But now black's king can start sidestepping, slide to the left, and go for that weak white a5 pawn. I'm really surprised Magnus has rushed into this. Normally, I would say kind of wait, only if you're 100% sure. But it does look mightily scary for white still.
And Magnus has to be sure that after sliding the king, if there's a trade of rooks on c5, that his king is fast enough to gobble the queen side pawns, and Alireza will not be able to create counterplay against the king side pawns, but Alireza prefers to keep the rooks on the board. But now this h3 pawn, the Alpha Zero, the Alpha Magnus pawn that we're talking about, in many positions, that can be a big weakness in White's knight, or the king can start targeting it.
It definitely can be a weakness, but after Magnus slides his king over, there are second rank ideas for him. He has so many options here, and I think for Alireza, give him 3 more minutes. He might have traded rooks in that position. Any rook check could have forced a rook trade, and perhaps that was a draw, but when you have 50 seconds, you can't calculate 20 moves down the line, which is what you need to do to ensure that you're not giving away a half point.
Yeah, really difficult position. Firouzja's done a kind of admirable job here of defending. Really fantastic stoic defense. But now it's kind of the calculation part of the game where it's very concrete. It's no more about those strategic, kind of theoretical things we were talking about where you can just trust your judgment and play on feel instinct alone. Now it's pure calculation. That's why Magnus has slowed down. 2 minutes against just under 1 minute. I'm expecting the Black King to move on over as well. That's the consistent kind of final act of the plan. But suddenly it's all about the king side. Can Black stabilize on that flank? And suddenly counterplay for the first time in a long time.
Amazing defense from Alireza. We keep talking about Magnus' ability to grind. Alireza's ability to defend is top notch. He's proving it in this game. But will he be able to sustain this? He's got 52 seconds left. Magnus, he's pausing for now, but you know he's going to rapid fire, just spit out a few moves in a row, and then Alireza will have to keep defending while being down to just seconds.
A big decision for Magnus. Does he allow Alireza to trade off the rooks, or will he slide with his king? Magnus with a big think, almost a 2-minute think at this point. So really the clocks are getting more and more leveled right now. It's going to be a race for Magnus to get on the queen side. Alireza trying to get to the pawns on the king side to create his own passer. Meanwhile, we do see the evaluation bar go in Hikaru's favor in his fight against Denis Lazovic, but it all really comes down to this game for Hikaru as well. And we're seeing it being played out. The king, as you said, moves towards the a5 pawn, the knight jumping into attack right now. Can Magnus just pick up the a5 pawn?
Oh, some calculation is needed. Maybe he'll want to avoid a pure rook endgame. So White's knight is threatening to take the black bishop, and White's rook, notice on the 3rd rank, is going to pick up that straggler, the pawn on h3. Magnus, I think, needs to keep some imbalance alive. He puts his bishop on g2. Nice active square defending the pawn. I didn't even see that was possible.
Me neither. I was shocked. But it defends the h3 pawn and the b7 pawn. This shows why bishops often dominate knights.
Yeah, and at least now, is there still a threat of taking on a5? You've got to be a bit careful. The white knight is jumping, so some source of counterplay, but 20 seconds to hold this when it looks like your kind of palace, your castle is just collapsing in front of you. The foundations, including that a5 pawn, dropping.
And so is the eval bar. The eval bar is dropping in Black's favor bit by bit. This is a nerve-wracking.
Clearly superior here. It drops back. The black rook will move out the way.
And Alireza with 1 second made that move.
Barely.
He's got no time, and now he loses another pawn.
Yeah, but what he's hoping for is if he can trade rooks and give up his knight for the b7 pawn. Bishop and a pawn versus king, if that king can run to the corner, will be a hold. So watch out. Know your theoretically drawn endgames. I don't think Magnus is going to blunder into that, but he needs to keep an eye out.
And he moves his king, but he's walking into a knight fork. Be careful. Big threat on the board. Knight back to d3 check would be a nasty fork on the king and rook. Magnus, I think he just chose the wrong square.
And now he's got to be careful because that knight check also forces the king to lose connection with that a5 pawn. You can't give a check right now, or can he? Because there's rook to c5 if he would have stepped over
that
with the
would have
king.
been checkmate.
Oh
White would have won the
gosh.
game had he stepped in the other direction. He still has 2 passed pawns. I think the engine evaluation, it says equal, but it's going to be difficult for Alireza to prove that with 7 seconds. He's doing a great job thus far.
Wow, Alireza so resourceful. He's setting up all the traps, that tricky knight jumps, and he's got a pass pawn of his own. The white g pawn is the best of all of them.
Yeah, and
3 squares away.
And all of Black's pieces are on one side of the board. They're sort of getting in each other's ways. The pawns can't move forward while White's pawn is just advancing further and further. He does attack the rook. He will move back, not giving any tempo. Does he push g6?
Why not? Have a pass pawn, push a pass pawn, but that bishop is coming around to b3 with check. And once the king slides out of the way, oh, you see Alireza, he was unsure, but he's taking a square away from the black king. The black king needs to move and the pawn needs to run.
Oh my gosh, and this is so important for not just Magnus Carlsen, but Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus needs to win, and this is getting closer to a draw.
Ever closer. If White sacrifices the knight for Black's pawn, we'll see the infamous rook and bishop versus rook endgame, which is objectively a draw, but so tough to defend with only a few seconds on the clock.
He can do it now.
he should take that pawn in the next few moves. It's not running away yet, but he wants to avoid that endgame as long as possible for Asia.
And the one thing Alireza has to avoid is bringing his king forward to a6. It looks like the best move, but you're walking into a pin, so that would free up the black king. I don't know how Magnus makes progress anymore. And he can't move his king without losing his a-pawn.
Oh, he's blocking out the white rook. This is really clever. Maybe forcing that sacrifice in the next few turns. But he's going behind Alireza, and the moment of truth, he does sacrifice. It's rook and bishop versus rook. Start your counters. It's the 50-move rule kicking in.
And did you see Magnus's reaction there? He says, okay, I'm ready for this one now. This is going to be a fight. It is rook bishop versus rook, a theoretical draw, but can Alireza hold for the next 50 moves?
And what you often want to do is keep your king and rook on the other color of that bishop. That's a great move by Magnus. He's trying to restrict the scope of that rook, but you need to bring your king closer. Magnus starts on the right path.
Magnus needs to force the white king onto one of the 4 sides of the board, and only then will there be checkmating ideas, but that's going to take a while. Alireza cutting off the black king. I'm pretty sure he studied this for hours and hours throughout his career. The top players spend a lot of time on this, but it's all about the nerves, whether he cracks. Only a few seconds left.
And I'm sure Magnus has studied this completely as well. So he knows how to try to get the white king to the edge of the board, the way to create the best chance. And it'll come down to those final moments. Does Alireza know those critical defenses when the king is in the last rank or the corner?
Alireza's nervous. He's down under 5 seconds. You could see him hesitating with his king move. That black king can now go to the center. That white king is being pushed to the edge of the board, but he can use the Cochrane defense, pin the bishop from a distance. He does that, so it's clear that Alireza knows what he's doing.
And now you've got to be really careful. You don't want to commit. The white king is ready to do a bit of a dance here. If black's king later goes one way, the white king will go the other. Now we'll see the white king go up the board surely in the next move or two. Ooh, Alireza, he's doing everything right so far, but still big nervous moments ahead.
It's Magnus Carlsen who's got less time on the clock than Alireza. The clocks are now absolutely level, and hesitancy there by Alireza. He finally decides to go to 8-6 with his king.
And that black king is inching closer because white wants to put that rook on the g-file and trade the rooks off. Not allowed here. If that bishop, it snakes back, here it comes. If it gets to f5, that white king could be in a mating net.
Oh, there it is. Back. He's losing now. Yep. He's in the net.
He's in the net. He walks right into the net. Bishop can even...
And they know it. They know it.
This is a well-known winning position. Black's rook will come round now and deliver a killer blow. The white king has no escape squares. Any check on the h-file will be decisive. Magnus goes the long way round, and white is stuck.
Alireza with a smile. He knows this is all over. He's gotten his king at the wrong side. There's a mate in one being threatened that you cannot fight against. Magnus Carlsen gets the job done, takes it to Armageddon. Alireza is disappointed. He had this one. A draw would have seen him through. And the other man who is very relieved with this result is Hikaru Nakamura.
You can